Hello, today I'll be doing a discography review. This time it'll be for the band Anthrax. And this is a band that I've been listening to a lot recently. And on top of that, I'm actually going to be seeing Anthrax live for the first time in January, mid-January. And I also have VIP for that show. So yeah, really looking forward to that show. But let's go ahead and dive into this discography. Of course, it all started with this album right here, Fistful of Metal, from 1984, their debut album, and also their only album with Neil Turbin. And honestly, I really dig his vocals in this album. And honestly, you could make the argument that this is maybe their heaviest or their most aggressive album. Definitely, at least in my opinion, a pretty solid debut. I mean, if I had to name some of my favorites on here, Death Rider, definitely a pretty killer album opener. Metal Thrashing Mad, Soldiers of Metal. Howling Furies, I think, is one of the more underrated songs off of here. And that's always been one of my personal favorites ever since the first time I heard this. And I think Death from Above, maybe one of their most overlooked, one of the most underrated songs. I really like that song a lot. Subjugator, to me, I really dig the gallopy rhythms in that song. Now, I will admit, the production on this album, maybe not the best, but at the same time, it doesn't really harm my enjoyment of the album, at least for me personally. But overall, again, pretty solid debut album. I wouldn't rank it as their best. One of their best, I'm still not sure. I mean, if I were to rank the albums, it'd maybe be towards the middle, potentially, maybe. But either way, again, pretty good debut album, I'd say. And again, I think Neil's vocals in the album are actually pretty good. But then they had the Armed and Dangerous EP, and off this EP, I really like Raise Hell, probably my favorite song off of here, but God Save the Queens is also another pretty good song off of here. And then we get Joey Belladonna with this album, Spreading the Disease, and definitely one of my personal favorites from the band. I mean, all killer, no filler, I'd say. I mean, of course, there's songs better than others, which is something you could say for any album you listen to. But yeah, all around, really great album. Definitely a classic in the world of thrash. And again, definitely one of the band's best. The album starts off with, in my opinion, one of their best album openers. That song being AIR. Definitely a banger and definitely a thrashy number 2. Lone Justice, also really good. Definitely one of my personal favorites on here. You have the big song on here, Madhouse, which also had a music video. The Enemy, which, I mean, that's another song that has to be another favorite of mine on the album. And also, another song that I think is one of the most underrated songs. I really like that song a lot. Gung Ho is maybe a contender for maybe being their fastest song or the most thrashy song. Armed and Dangerous, definitely a unique song on here. Starts off fairly melodic for the first minute or minute and a half or so, and then it gets heavier towards the second half. All around, really great song. Medusa's also pretty good. Definitely another classic for the band. But yeah, all around, really great album from Anthrax, and definitely one of my favorites from the band. Then we move to an album that's often considered their best, or at least one of their best, and that is Among the Living. Honestly, nowadays, it's kind of tough for me to pick a favorite Anthrax album. It'd have to be a fight between Spreading the Disease and Among the Living. But this album, another album that I consider a classic in the world of thrash. I mean, so many great songs on here. I mean, especially the first 7 songs I think are excellent. Towel Track, definitely one of their best songs, I'd say. Caught in a Mosh, definitely one of the band's anthems, and also probably one of the band's best songs too. Indians was the song that I believe was the song that got me hooked onto Anthrax. Definitely a great song, and probably would be in my top 10 favorite Anthrax songs list easily. Great song. Skeleton in the Closet has some pretty killer guitar work in it, and drum work too. One World, I think, is a song that's somewhat kind of underrated. I'll admit the last 2 songs on here, the last 2 songs on the album are the songs that I most likely probably go back to the least, but still, I do like these songs. ADI, Horror of It All, I do like that song. Imitation of Life is also pretty solid, but again, those are the 2 songs on here that I probably return to the least. But again, decent songs, but yeah, definitely one of the band's best, I'd say. Now we'll be moving to the I'm the Man EP. And when I see them in January, I hope they play this song. I really like that song personally. Maybe one of my favorite Anthrax songs. But yeah, overall, pretty cool EP and definitely a great song too. A song that showed off their more playful side and definitely worked for them. If I remember correctly, it commercially did fairly well for the band. And again, definitely one of my favorite Anthrax songs at this point, if I'm being honest. But then they come out with State of Euphoria, which I'm sure most of us would agree, a bit of a step down from Among the Living, but at the same time, I still think this album is actually pretty good. Maybe one of my favorites from the band. Not quite on the level of Spreading the Disease or Among the Living, but still, I'd say maybe one of their best. I mean, Be All End All, definitely one of the best songs on here. I really like Who Cares Wins. That's maybe a contender for maybe being my favorite song on here. It has a really cool build-up leading into the first verse, and yeah, it's one of the songs that I go back to the most off the album. Really great song. You also have the cover of Antisocial, which is also pretty good. And I have heard the original, and not really my thing, but I don't mind it though. Overall, I don't mind the original, but not really something that I'd seek out. But I definitely do like the band's cover of that song. Out of Sight, Out of Mind, another favorite of mine off the album. I also do like Finale. Now It's Dark, another song that I think is probably one of my favorites off of here. But yeah, State of Euphoria, while I would say, again, a step down from Among the Living, I still overall think pretty good. But between that album and Persistence of Time, they released this EP right here. Nice fucking EP, which is pretty cool to have in the collection. But next they would come out with arguably maybe their darkest album, Persistence of Time. And yeah, this is another album that I think is one of the best. I mean, if you were to narrow down the top 3 best Anthrax albums, it would be probably Spreading the Disease, Among the Living, and this album right here. I mean, this album is definitely pretty awesome. I mean, that definitely has some of the band's best work, like Keep It in the Family and In My World and Belly of the Beast. I do like Got the Time, which, if I remember correctly, is a cover. But either way, pretty fun song on the album. I also really like the album opener, Time. That's a song that's grown over time to be one of my favorites off the album. Discharge, while I would say not one of my favorite album openers from the band, or not album openers, album closers from the band, still I think that song is overall pretty solid. Never been one of my personal favorites on the album, but I do like it though. I also really like Gridlock, kind of an overlooked song on the album, but yeah, overall pretty good. Another pretty good album from Anthrax. But yeah, it would be the final album with Joey Belladonna until he would return in the 2010s. But I also have this version of Persistence of Time. Also, this is an anniversary CD. But they also would put out Attack of the Killer Bees, excuse me, which is a compilation which has Bring the Noise on it. Definitely great song and also a great cover too. When it comes to stuff I listen to outside of rock and metal, rap is usually my go-to genre, and yeah, Bring the Noise, again, definitely pretty cool. When it comes to other songs on here, Parasites, probably one of my favorites off of this album here, but yeah. Now we lose Joey Belladonna and enters John Bush with Sound of White Noise. Easily the best album of this era, in my opinion. Easily the best one. I mean, you have the big song from this era, that song being Only. Really great song. You could make the argument that's maybe one of the band's best songs too. Same with track number 3, Room for One More. A really great song. Potter's Field, honestly, that might be one of my favorite album openers from Anthrax. I really like that song a lot. High Pro Glow, another really good song. Sodium Pentanol, another song that I would say is one of their more underrated songs, or one of the most overlooked. I really like that song a lot too. Burst, which is one of the heavier songs on here, I really like that song. You do have the ballad on here, Black Lodge, which, I'm kind of on the fence about. Part of me likes it, while another part of me is kind of about it. But overall, pretty good album from Anthrax. And This album, for the most part, kind of continues the sound that we got from the previous album, Persistence of Time. You still have that dark, heavy sound with this album here, but yeah, again, definitely my favorite of the John Bush era. But next they would come out with Stomp 442, and I have the Japan import. Yeah, this is one of their weaker albums for me. I gotta be honest here, but with saying that, I still think there is some good stuff on here. Random Acts of Senseless Violence, overall a pretty solid album opener and easily one of the more stronger songs on here. Track number two, Fueled, which is arguably maybe the biggest song on here. Definitely my favorite song on the album. And I dig the heaviness of the riffs in that one especially. Nothing is another really good song on here, but yeah, it's when it comes to their discography, this is one of the albums that I return to the least, or grabbed for the least. But yeah, again, it has its moments, but overall, definitely one of their weaker albums in my opinion. If I remember correctly, Perpetual Motion and Riding Shotgun are a couple other songs that I don't mind, but yeah, again, for me, one of their weaker albums. But then you move to Volume 8, The Threat Is Real, which for me, easily their worst album. But with saying that, I do like a few songs on here, mainly just the first 3 songs, if I'm being honest here. Crush, Catharsis, and Inside Out. Inside Out has a pretty cool music video, I'd say. And if you haven't seen the music video for Inside Out, definitely check it out. Maybe one of their best videos. But, I mean, you move to the rest of the album, and I'm just not really into the rest of the album. I mean, you have this country song on here, Toast to the Extras. Never cared for that song at all, especially John Bush's vocals in that song. Definitely not a fan. If I remember correctly, POP and V is the song where you have a cowbell in there. And I'm kind of like, yeah, not really feeling that at all. But yeah, definitely, again, the band's worst album, at least in my opinion. But at least it has a few songs I don't mind, or it has a few decent moments on it. And also another thing for me with that album is that I'm just not a big fan of the production also. But next they would come out with this compilation called Return of the Killer A's. Then they released their final album with John Bush, which is We Come For You All. Definitely a step up from Volume 8, and I'd say also better than Stomp 442, but not quite as good as Sound of White Noise. Overall, I would say this is a good album, but not great or amazing. Mainly because this is one, at least in my opinion, I feel like this is one of those albums where you have a strong first half, but a overall weaker second half. Some of the best songs on here, I mean, What Doesn't Die, really great song, probably one of the best songs to come from the John Bush era. Refuse to Be Denied, another song that I really enjoy. Safe Home, a bit of a more melodic song, I really like that one. Superhero, kind of an underrated song. Strap It On's a cool song. But you move towards the second half where things start to get a bit uninteresting in my opinion. But I do dig the title track though. The title track is pretty good. But overall, again, a good album. But again, not great or amazing. But it definitely has its strong tracks on it though. Its share of strong tracks. But yeah, also they released this CD here, summer 2003, and if I have my information right, this was something that they were giving out at concerts or shows. That's just something that I remember reading somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not, but either way, again, pretty cool to have in the collection. And then they would also release this album right here in 2004, The Greater of Two Evils, which has re-recordings, and I'll admit I'm not a big fan of this album, especially the songs on here from the Fistful of Metal era. I'm really not into, especially Death Rider. I mean, John Bush's vocals for me just do not work with the songs from the Fistful of Metal era or album. But yeah, again, not a big fan of that. Not a big fan of this one. But then they would return in the early 2010s with Worship Music. Overall, a pretty good comeback album. I think they would do even better with the next album after this one, but still, I think this album is overall fairly solid. It has a few skippable tracks on here, at least in my opinion, but still, It definitely has its share of highs or highlights, like Earth on Hell, bit of a shorter song, or one of the shorter songs on here. The singles on here are pretty good. The Devil You Know, Fight 'Em Till You Can't, probably my favorite of the singles on the album, and also one of the best songs on the album, I'd say. I'm Alive and The Giant are two songs on here that I think are somewhat kind of underrated. But yeah, excuse me, overall, pretty good Anthrax album. I wouldn't rank it as one of the band's best, but still, it has some pretty good songs on here though. Like again, Fight 'Em Till You Can and I'm Alive, which are maybe my favorite songs on the album. But they would next come out with this covers album here. And I'll admit, I'm not too big on this. You do have a cover of Big Eyes, originally done by Cheap Trick. You also have a cover of Anthem. And yeah, there's nothing really on here that I really return to all that much. But again, still, even with that, I still think it's worth having in the collection. That's probably just the completest in me. But now I'll be moving to their latest album, For All Kings. So in my opinion, a step up from Worship Music, which again, a pretty good album, but again, I think they did even better with this one. Something that at least I noticed with this album is that this album seems a bit more commercial leaning or more radio friendly than Worship Music, or at least with some of the songs on here, especially Breathing Lightning. That's the song that's definitely perfect for the radio or for radio play, but still pretty good song, I'd say. Definitely one of the highlights off the album. Susie Rain, another song that's probably one of my favorites on here. You have the epic song Blood Eagle Wings, which has a pretty interesting music video. I really like that song a lot. It's kind of this album's Keep It in the Family, you could maybe say. Evil Twin, which is a bit of a more thrashy song on here. I really like that song. But the album closes with, in my opinion, one of their more underrated songs, Zero Tolerance. I really like that song a lot. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. But yeah, this album might have one or two skippable songs on here, but that's really it though. Overall, I think this is a pretty strong album from Anthrax. And when it comes to more modern work from the Big Four, I think this is one of the better albums. I mean, now I don't know if this is going to be unpopular to say, but I personally would listen to this over really any of the modern Slayer albums, or at least from the 2000s and on. But yeah, either way, again, pretty good Anthrax album, I'd say, and I'm definitely curious of what the band would do next with the next album. But yeah, that is my review of the Anthrax discography. Let me know your thoughts on my review. Let me know your thoughts on these albums or each album. Let me know some of your favorite or least favorite songs or albums from the band and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like. Subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.